This would have to be one of the Flatards' favourite memes they love to post. It's a quote from a NASA researcher, a NASA scientist, Rob Simon, where he said, it's photoshopped because it has to be. And this meme is everywhere. I tracked down where this quote comes from, and yeah, it turns out this is an actual quote from Rob Simon, but it turns out that, surprise, surprise, this quote has been taken out of context. So let's see some of the details of where this quote came from. So this quote actually came from a Science Friday program that was an interview that Rob Simon did in 2012, where he's talking about the work he did for a famous photo called the Blue Marble 2.0, and this was work he did in 2002. Let's hear what he had to say.
Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0. NASA's Rob Simon made this. And Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
So you'll note he said making pictures from data. He said data. He didn't say making crap up.
That's what this is, a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So you'll note he's talking about there was no realistic color map of the globe. He's not actually claiming that this is a photograph, this thing he worked on. He is creating a color map of the globe.
Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
Also, Flatards, please note that he says up until that point. He's talking about 2002. It's now 2017. That's 15 fucking years later. In 2002, there was no realistic coloured map of the globe. But now we have satellites. 15 years later, we have satellites that are way out in space, and we've got the Himawari 8 satellite sending in full disk colour images of the globe every 10 minutes. And there's at least 3 other space agencies that have satellites that are sending back full colour images of the globe. So get with the fucking program. It's 2017. It's not 2002. The Earth is fucking spherical.
So the land layer here comes from
the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
So there you have it, the famous "it's photoshopped because it has to be" quote. And you'll notice, yeah, when you hear it in context there, you can hear exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about the fact that the cloud data came in strips. There was bits missing because they had satellites that are flying close to the Earth's surface that take images in strips. And they just wanted to add clouds back to cover up those strips. They weren't hiding this fact. It's just being honest. This is not a fraud.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it.
With satellite data, like this map of chlorophyll and land vegetation over time, accuracy is key, obviously, but it's also most easily deciphered as imagery, Feldman says.
Because the data volumes that we get from space now are astronomical, the only way that we can really handle this anymore is to visualize it. And no matter what computers we may build, the human mind and the human eye, in my mind, is still the most powerful integrator of information.
The objective here is to create models that accurately reflect the past so that we can predict how the planet will change in the future, Feldman says.
Or if some of those changes might be negative to the way we want our Earth to be, what can we do about it?